You ever wonder why someone who clearly has feelings for you, someone who you know thinks about you, still doesn't reach out? You know he craves you. You can feel it. The energy is there, the connection undeniable, and yet silence. No message, no call, no effort. Why? Because his ego is running the show. See, desire is not enough to make a man act. Feelings alone don't dictate behavior. If they did, he'd already be on the phone with you. But there's a battle happening inside of him. One part of him wants nothing more than to be near you, to talk to you, to be in your life in any way possible. But then there's the other part, the part that's terrified, the part that whispers, if you reach out, you're exposed. If you show her how much you want her, you lose power. Men are taught, directly or indirectly, that control equals strength, that the one who cares less wins. And for some men, that lesson is so deeply ingrained that even when they desperately want to reach out, they stop themselves. Not because they don't care, but because caring too much feels dangerous to their sense of self. It makes them feel weak, vulnerable. And vulnerability, that's a risk they don't know how to take. Now you might think, but why does he have to see it as weakness? If he likes me, why wouldn't he just act on it? Because for a lot of men, showing how much they care feels like handing over control. It's like stepping into the unknown with no armor. And the truth is, many men haven't learnt how to be strong without their ego protecting them. They haven't learnt that real confidence isn't about withholding affection, it's about having the courage to express it. So instead, he plays this internal game. He convinces himself that if he waits long enough, maybe you'll reach out first. Maybe you'll be the one to close the gap so he doesn't have to risk his pride. Or he tells himself that if he keeps his distance, his craving for you will pass. That if he ignores it long enough, the feelings will go away. But here's the kicker. They don't. That desire stays. It simmers. It lingers. And yet his ego refuses to let him act on it. And this is where so many women get caught in a painful loop. You feel his energy. You sense that he wants to reach out, but he doesn't. So you start questioning yourself. Did I do something wrong? Does he not care enough? Maybe if I just gave him a sign, he'd feel safe to make a move. But that's where you have to be careful. Because the moment you start taking on the responsibility for making him feel safe enough to act, you start negotiating against your own value. A man who truly values you isn't going to let his ego stand in the way of showing up for you. He's not going to play games with his own feelings just to maintain an illusion of control. When a man is truly confident, he won't see his emotions as something to suppress. He'll see them as something worth acting on. And that's the kind of man you want. Not the one who is so trapped in his own ego that he convinces himself it's better to suffer in silence than to risk showing you he cares. So what do? Do you wait? Do you send that message? Do you give him just a little nudge so he feels like he has permission? No. You let him figure it out. Because a man who is held back by his ego isn't a man who is ready. If he can't push past his own pride, then he's not capable of the kind of relationship you deserve. What you do is you stay in your power. You recognize that his silence is not a reflection of your worth, but of his own internal struggle. And you don't lower yourself to match his energy. Because the kind of love you want, the kind of love that's real, that's mutual, that's built on strength and respect, doesn't require ego games. It requires courage. And if he doesn't have that yet, then he's just not there yet. And that's not your problem to fix. You ever notice how some men act like they have it all together, but the moment emotions get involved, they disappear? It's not because they don't feel something for you. In fact, it's often the opposite. When a man craves you deeply, when you have a hold on his mind in a way that he can't shake, that's exactly when he pulls away. And it's not because he doesn't want you, it's because he's terrified of losing control. Men are taught, whether consciously or unconsciously, to be in control of their emotions, their careers, their ambition. There's an unspoken rule that needing someone too much is weakness, that vulnerability is dangerous. So, when a man finds himself craving you to the point where his thoughts circle back to you every time he's alone, when your presence starts dictating his mood, when the mere thought of losing you sends a pit into his stomach, his first instinct isn't always to move towards you. Sometimes it's to pull back. Because stepping toward you means stepping into the unknown, and the unknown is where control is lost. The truth is, most men like to feel like they are leading in their lives. They like to feel like they are choosing, not being chosen. But the moment he starts to crave you, the moment he realizes you have a power over him, it starts to feel like he's no longer in control. And that is terrifying. He knows if he reaches out, he's exposing himself. He's showing his hand. And what if he does? And you don't reciprocate with the same level of intensity? What if you have the ability to hurt him? What if he goes all in and you change your mind? This isn't just about romance. This is about survival. His instincts are telling him, stay in control. Don't let someone else dictate your emotions. Don't risk being the one who cares more. And so he holds back. He tells himself, if she wants me, she'll come to me. He convinces himself that if he just waits long enough, maybe the craving will subside. Maybe he'll get over you. Maybe you'll fade into the background like a passing thought. But here's what he doesn't realize. Resisting the urge to reach out doesn't make the craving go away. It only intensifies it. It only makes the tension greater. He fights the impulse, thinking it's a form of strength, when really it's a form of avoidance. But here's where it gets even more complicated. The longer he resists, the more he starts to believe his own act. He starts to frame the story in his mind in a way that protects his ego. Instead of admitting to himself that he's avoiding you because he's afraid of what he feels, he convinces himself that maybe he just doesn't need you that much. Maybe you're not the right one. Maybe if it were truly meant to be, it wouldn't feel so vulnerable, so scary. He rationalizes his fear into logic. And once he does that, reaching out to you feels even less likely because now he's built a whole case in his head about why he shouldn't. But deep down, late at night, in those moments when his guard is down, when he's scrolling through his phone thinking about whether or not to text you, when he hears a song that reminds him of you, when he catches himself replaying the way you laughed at something he said, those are the moments when the truth seeps in. He craves you, he wants you, but he's afraid to want you too much. And this is where a lot of women get caught up in the wrong question. You start asking yourself, if he wants me, why isn't he reaching out? But that's not the real question. The real question is, why are you waiting for someone who is too afraid to step into what they truly want? Why are you putting your power in the hands of someone who is still wrestling with their own fears? Because a man who is truly ready, a man who isn't afraid to lose control in the right way, won't let his fears dictate his action. He'll take the risk. He'll reach out. He'll step up. The reality is, control is an illusion. Love, connection, real chemistry, none of that exists in a space of control. The men who try to fight their feelings, who try to suppress their desire, who refuse to reach out because they're afraid of looking weak, they're not in control. They're just trapped in fear. And you, waiting for them to make a move, you're getting caught in that same trap. So here's what you need to understand. A man who truly wants to be with you will find a way to be with you, not because he's free from fear, but because he's willing to move through it, because he understands that what he stands to gain is greater than what he might lose, because he recognizes that the real strength isn't in control, it's in courage. And if he doesn't, if he lets fear win, then he's already lost something far greater than control. He's lost the chance to experience something real with you. And that's his loss, not yours. If he's waiting for you to chase, it's not because he doesn't want you. It's because he's trying to shift the balance of power in his favor. See, attraction isn't always about who desires who. It's often about who is willing to take action on that desire. And for some men, the real game isn't just about liking you. It's about seeing whether they can make you prove how much you like them. It's a dance of control, of positioning, of ego. If he senses that you're interested, that you feel the spark, he might sit back and think, let's see how much she's willing to do for me. Let's see if she'll text first, if she'll try to win me over, if she'll keep the conversation going. And the moment you take that bait, the moment you step into that dynamic where you start chasing, something shifts. The power tilts. And suddenly, instead of being on equal ground, you find yourself constantly trying to get his attention, to keep him engaged, to figure out what he wants. The irony? He probably does want you. He probably thinks about you, wonders about you, maybe even checks your social media, seeing if you're doing just fine without him, but he won't reach out. Not because he doesn't crave you, but because he wants you to feel his absence so deeply that you're the one who gives in first. Now, let me ask you something. Do you really want to be in a position where you have to prove your value to someone who already knows your worth? Because that's what this game is really about. It's not about love. It's not about chemistry. And it's certainly not about destiny. It's about control. It's about one person deciding that they'd rather be the prize than the pursuer. And the moment you play into that, you reinforce the idea that your attention is something he can just sit back and wait for. But let's flip the script for a second. What happens when you don't chase? What happens when you don't reach out first? When you don't play the role he's expecting you to? That's when things get interesting. That's when you find out whether he was truly interested in you or just in the feeling of being wanted. If he actually values you, if he genuinely craves you, then your absence will not go unnoticed. He'll feel it. He'll wonder why you're not the one filling the silence, why you're not the one making the effort. And if he never reaches out, then you've already won, because now you know he wasn't interested in you as a person, just in the validation that your pursuit would give him. I see so many people stuck in this cycle, waiting for someone to act, hoping that silence will break, analyzing every little interaction, every text that comes late or not at all, as if it holds some hidden meaning. But the truth is simple. If a man truly wants you, he'll make it known. Period. A man who genuinely values a connection doesn't sit back and risk losing someone amazing just because he wants to be chased. He doesn't let pride get in the way of reaching out. He doesn't play games when he knows what he wants. So if he's not calling, if he's not texting, if he's not making a move, despite how much he craves you, the real question isn't why he's doing it, it's why you're still waiting for him too. You ever wonder why someone can want you, crave you, and yet still not reach out? It doesn't make sense, right? You feel the energy, you sense the pull, and yet silence. No call, no message, nothing. And it leaves you questioning. If he wants me so badly, why isn't he doing anything about it? Let's talk about the thing no one likes to admit. Baggage, the past, the weight of unresolved emotions. Because sometimes it's not about you at all. It's about everything he hasn't dealt with yet. Here's what happens. He meets you, he feels something undeniable, and for a moment he thinks, this could be different. Maybe you awaken something in him that he hasn't felt in a long time, maybe ever. But instead of stepping into it, he hesitates. Not because he doesn't want it, but because wanting it brings up everything else. Past heartbreaks, failures, disappointments, fears, the things he thought he had buried suddenly rise to the surface. And instead of facing them, instead of acknowledging them and stepping forward, he retreats. Not because you're not enough, but because he hasn't dealt with what came before you. People don't like to admit this, but unresolved baggage is one of the biggest killers of potential relationships. He might crave you in a way that feels almost unbearable, but if being with you means confronting parts of himself he's not ready to face, he will sabotage it before it even begins. He will hold himself back because moving forward requires emotional work he hasn't done yet. And here's where it gets tricky. He may not even realize this is happening. He may convince himself it's timing, or that he's not sure about his feelings, or that he needs to focus on other things, but deep down, it's fear. Fear that history will repeat itself. Fear that if he lets himself want you fully, he will lose control, get hurt, or worse, fail at something he really wants. We are wired to protect ourselves. The mind will always prioritize safety over fulfillment. If he's been through something painful, a past relationship that ended badly, betrayal, rejection, his mind is going to see desire as dangerous. So even when he craves you, even when every part of him wants to reach out, something inside of him is saying, don't go there. Because going there means risking being vulnerable again. It means opening himself up to the possibility of pain. And some people would rather sit in longing than take the risk of experiencing another heartbreak. Now, this is where most people get stuck. They think if he really wanted me, he would push through all of that. But here's what I want you to understand. People don't just push through things they haven't processed. You can't shortcut healing. You can't force someone to be ready. And that's where we get it wrong. We think if we just show them how good this could be, if we're patient enough, if we love them enough, they'll suddenly realize what they're missing. But it doesn't work like that. Readiness isn't about you, it's about them. No matter how much he craves you, if he hasn't done the inner work, he will find a way to keep his distance. And that has nothing to do with your worth or what you bring to the table. It's about whether he's in a place where he can actually let himself have it. Think about it this way. Imagine someone who's been starving for days. They haven't had a real meal in a long time. Now, you put a beautiful, nourishing plate of food in front of them. What do? You'd think they'd dive in, right? But sometimes they don't. Sometimes they hesitate because eating again means acknowledging how long they've been without. It means remembering the pain of hunger, of deprivation. And that realization can be overwhelming. So instead of embracing what's in front of them, they pull back. Not because they don't want it, but because accepting it forces them to confront how much they've been starving in the first place. This is what happens with someone who hasn't healed. He may crave you, but acting on that craving means acknowledging everything he hasn't dealt with. And that can be terrifying. It's easier to sit in longing than to step into something that requires emotional courage. It's easier to keep you as a beautiful idea rather than a real person who requires effort, consistency, and vulnerability. So what does this mean for you? It means stop internalizing his inaction as a reflection of your value. It means stop waiting for him to wake up and see what he's missing. It means understanding that you can be everything he's ever wanted, and he still won't act on it if he's not in the right place to receive it. And that is not your problem to fix. You deserve someone who is not just drawn to you, but ready for you. Someone who isn't just craving you in silence, but actually willing to do something about it. And the more you invest in someone who isn't showing up, the more you are teaching yourself that longing is acceptable, that almost is enough, but it's not. You don't need someone who dreams about you. You need someone who chooses you every single time. There's a difference between being wanted and being chosen. A man can crave you, desire you, think about you constantly, and yet he never acts. He never calls, he never texts, he never shows up. And you start asking yourself, if he wants me so badly, why isn't he here? But here's the hard truth. Sometimes you are his fantasy, not his reality. And that distinction is everything. You see, fantasy is easy. It's effortless. In his mind, he can have you in the most perfect way. You're the woman he dreams about when he's lying in bed at night. You're the image that pops into his head when he hears a song on the radio or sees a couple walking down the street. He craves you in his imagination because in that space, he doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to make an effort. He doesn't have to risk rejection. He can keep you in a safe, untouchable place where you remain perfect, where he never has to confront the reality of what it means to actually be with you. But reality requires something more. It requires action. It requires effort. It requires him to put himself on the line and risk being vulnerable. And that's where so many men get stuck. Because to bring you into reality, to make you a real part of his life, he has to do the work. He has to pick up the phone, text you, arrange to see you, and show up consistently. And the moment he does that, he can no longer control the fantasy. He can't edit out the parts of life that don't fit his idealized version of you. He has to deal with the messy, real, beautifully complicated woman that you are. And if he's not ready for that, he won't step forward. Now, here's where a lot of people make a mistake. They think if he wants me this much, then surely at some point he'll make a move. But that's not how this works. A craving without action is just a thought. It's a momentary indulgence, a fleeting feeling that gives him a rush, but doesn't change anything. And you are not here to be a fleeting thought in someone's head. You are here to be valued, prioritized, and pursued in the real world. The problem is, when you're someone's fantasy, it can feel intoxicating. You sense their desire, you catch glimpses of their interest, and you convince yourself that it's only a matter of time before they finally give in. But days pass, then weeks, and then months, and you realize it's all been in his head. He has lived 1,000 moments with you in his mind, but not a single one in real life, and that is where the danger lies. Because if you allow yourself to be a part of someone's fantasy for too long, you start living in it too. You start waiting. You start holding space for someone who has never actually claimed that space. You start hoping that one day he'll wake up and finally do something about what he feels. But the truth is, if he wanted to, he would. What's really happening here is that he's choosing the comfort of his imagination over the effort of real love. Because real love is inconvenient. It requires showing up when it's hard, having conversations that might be uncomfortable, and making decisions that take courage. And not every man is ready for that. Some men would rather hold on to their fantasies because they don't demand anything from them. A fantasy doesn't require responsibility. A fantasy doesn't require change. A fantasy doesn't ask him to commit, grow, or step outside of his comfort zone. But you do, and that is why he stays exactly where he is, trapped between craving you and never actually having you. So what do you do with this? You stop playing the game. You stop feeding the illusion that one day he'll step up when his actions have shown you that he won't. You stop reading between the lines of his half-hearted texts and mixed signals, hoping they mean more than they do. You stop confusing potential with reality, because potential doesn't make you feel seen. Potential doesn't bring you flowers. Potential doesn't show up when you need someone. Reality does. And the man who is truly meant for you will never leave you in a place where you have to guess how he feels. The most powerful thing you can do in this situation is reclaim your own reality. Shift your focus away from what he might be thinking and onto what he's actually doing. Because if he's not doing anything, then you already have your answer. A man who truly wants to be with you will move mountains to make it happen. He won't let fear, ego, or timing hold him back. He won't let his craving for you exist only in his mind. He'll bring it into real life. And if he's not doing that, then he's not your person. So the question isn't why he won't reach out. The real question is, why are you waiting for a man who only exists in his own fantasy? Even if he wants you badly, even if he craves you in a way that keeps him up at night, he might still hold himself back. And the reason? He's just not ready. Now, I know that sounds simple, but let's break this down, because this is where so many people get stuck. Waiting for someone who has already made a decision, even if it's not the one they'll admit to out loud. A man can feel intense attraction for you. He can think about you every single day. But when it comes to taking action,